Hello, everyone. For tonight's 7th grade math homework, our job is to add together mixed numbers. And a mixed number, if you remember, is where a whole number is next to a fraction. So we're going to be adding two of these together. Now, in order to do that, we have to follow a 4-step process. The process is to first convert our mixed number into an improper fraction, find the common denominator between the two fractions, change the denominators in the whole fractions into the fraction in which they have the same denominator, and then finally add or subtract depending on what the problem is asking you to do. So let's run through these steps with problem number 1. Zoom in nice and close. So the first thing I see that I have to do, well, I'm going to go back a little bit. The first step that I see that I have to do is convert. So the first thing to convert a mixed number into an improper fraction, I do this thing that Miss Rao likes to call around the world. And basically that means I'm going to start with my denominator down here. I'm going to multiply my denominator with my whole number, which is 1 in this situation. Well, I know that 2 times 1 is just 2, so I've got 2 so far. Once I've got my 2 from these two, I then add the number I come up with to the numerator. So my numerator is 1 here. 2 plus 1, that gives me 3. I've now got 3, and as we remember, we always keep the denominator the same. 3 over 2. Okay, so we just converted the first fraction, or the first mixed number, so now I'm going to do the same thing to the second one. And again, I'm going to go around the world here. 2 times 2, well, that gives me 4. And then 4 add 1 is going to give me 5. Again, the denominator stays the same. So now my problem looks like this. 3 over 2 plus 5 over 2. Now, the next step, so I'm going to check that off. The next step is to find the least common denominator. The denominator, as you remember, is the bottom number of our fraction. Well, this is actually going to be pretty easy because I'm seeing that our denominators are actually already the same. So I don't need to find a least common denominator. To make it even easier, there's nothing to change here because again, our denominators are already the same. I don't have to change them. So now I'm going into my easiest step of all, which is adding the two improper fractions together. So I'm going to do that. 3 plus 5, that gives me 8. And then if we remember, our denominator stays the same. So my answer is 8 over 2, or a giant 8 over 2. That 8's pretty big. Okay, let's do the same thing, only this time let's challenge ourselves to have a different denominator. Okay, so our first step again is we have to convert our mixed number into an improper fraction. Again, I'm going to go around the world, starting with multiplication. 3 times 2, that gives me 6. And then 6, add 2, because remember we find that number, and then we add the numerator to it, that gives me 8. So I just changed that to an improper fraction. That improper fraction is 8 over 3. Now let's do the same thing for the second fraction. Again, going around the world. 3 times 4, that gives me 12. And then 12 plus 3 gives me 15. Again, our denominator stays the same. So now we just did step 1. We converted our mixed numbers into improper fractions. Now we got to go on to step 2. I can't add or subtract fractions together if they have unlike denominators. And we can see that these denominators are unlike right now because we have a 3 on this fraction and a 4 on this fraction. So the way that we convert them is we must first find the least common denominator between them. And the way that we do that, the way I like to do that, is I could either multiply them together, but I can also just count by each of the numbers until I find a common denominator. So let's try counting by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, go one more, 15. And I also have to do the same thing with my 4s. Counting by 4s, 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is... Eureka! We have found a common denominator. Both 4 and 3 go evenly inside the number 12. So, we found our LCD. Our LCD is 12. Now, we have to change both of our fractions, both of our denominators to 12. So how we do that is, I'm going to start with this fraction on the left, 8/3. And I'm going to look and see what I have to multiply 3 by to make 4. Looks like I have to multiply 3 times 4 to make 12. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. Well, 3 times 4 is 12. I'm going to put the new fraction down here. And 8 times 4, well, that's 32. So, I've now converted this denominator and numerator out of 12. I'm going to do the same thing to the other fraction. Again, I ask myself, what do I have to multiply 4 by to make 12? Well, I have to multiply 3. I have to multiply it by 3. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So 4 times 3, again, is 12. 15 times 3, 45. I now successfully have a common denominator between my two fractions. So I've successfully changed my fraction. Again, we do our last step. That's our easiest step of all. We have to add or subtract depending. I'm saying that this is adding. Remember what I said earlier, we never actually change our denominator. We don't add those together, so it wouldn't be 24. We keep it 12. So now I'm looking over here. I got 45 and 32 I need to add together. Gonna go do that over here real quick. 5 plus 2 is 7. 4 plus 3 is also 7. Our answer, 77 over 12. Okay, so we've gotten 2 of our answers. I will go over 1 more. We'll do a minus problem just to mix it up a little bit. We'll do this one over here. We have 3 2/3 minus 1 1/2. First thing I have to do is convert. So I got to go around the world. 3 times 3, 9. 9 add 2, 11. 11 over 3. Got to go around the world on this fraction as well. 2 times 1 is 2. Add 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 over 2. Okay, so I converted my fraction. 11/3 minus 3 over 2. I'm noticing that we don't have a common denominator right now. So I have to find a common denominator between 3 and 2. Well, I'm just going to do quickly, I'm going to count by 2's over here. 2, 4, 6, 8. I'm going to go that far. I'm going to do the same thing for 3. 3, 6. Oh, already found one. A common denominator of 3 and 2 is 6. Okay, so our LCD is going to be 6 here, I see. Well, now we got to change it. So, I have to ask myself, what do I have to multiply 3 by to make 6? Well, I got to multiply it by 2. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 3 times 2 is 6. 11 times 2, 22. My new fraction is 22 over 6. Now, this is a minus problem. I'm going to put that down. Same thing. What do I have to multiply 2 by this denominator to make 6? I know it's 3. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 2 times 3 is 6. Our denominators are now the same. 3 times 3 is 9. We have now changed. And we already got that one earlier. Easiest part, add or subtract. It looks like I'm subtracting this time. Well, I know I keep my denominator the same. 22 minus 9. Just going to do over the side. I know I can't subtract 9 from 2, so I'm going to borrow. That turns into a, let's see if I got enough room here, 12. 12 minus 9 is 3. 13. Our answer is 13 over 6. If you have any problems or any more questions, feel free to call or email me. Have a good rest of your weekend. Thanks. Bye.